Yes, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the UNC Football Show, brought to you by TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner, joining me as he always does to talk some Carolina football. It's our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And AJ, we're going to be hitting on a few different topics. As obviously spring ball wrapped up this past Saturday, following the spring game. Portal opened on Saturday as well. We'll hit on the portal a little bit later, but just going to be reviewing spring for a few minutes, talking about some of our opinions on how it went. And then again, we'll hit on the portal and maybe some potential positions that Carolina will be looking to maybe go grab a couple guys in over the next few weeks. So AJ, real quickly though, shout out to our sponsor on this podcast. That's Rogue Shop. Check them out, rogueshop.com, specializing top shelf family grown hemp products. I'm going to let you guys in on a little bit more about them a little bit later, and also let you know the promo code to use to save on your next order. So make sure you stick around, as we'll be hitting on the Rogue Shop a little bit later on in this podcast. You like that right there, AJ? A little, little segue. Trying to keep the people engaged, trying to keep them sticking around for a little bit.
But they're going to save money on a great product. A product stuff that I was apprehensive about initially.
Yeah. And I remember having conversations about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I jumped in, and man, I'll tell you, it's great product.
It's good stuff, man. It really is. It's really high quality.
We've had a long relationship with Richard, and we're going to continue to have a long one.
Yeah, from the packaging to just what you get with the products, man. It's all really just top shelf.
We're doing it again. We're doing the read now.
And again, I think people just think we say it because they sponsor us, but both of our two main sponsors.
I'm not in pain right now.
Yeah, because of
the cream.
Yeah,
trust me. Without the cream, I'd feel 1,000 years old if I didn't have the cream.
If the products and the services we're promoting were bad, we wouldn't be promoting them. I can confidently say that. Trust me, that's not how we roll. That's not how we roll at Tar Illustrated. So again, stay tuned for that. Rogueshop.com. I'll let you know a little promo code a little bit later as well. All right, AJ, we'll hit on again. Spring ball wrapped up on Saturday. Portal opened on Saturday. I want to just ask you this question. In your opinion, was it a good, productive spring for Carolina?
Yeah, I think it was a really good spring. In fact, I don't think I'm stepping out on a limb, and I'm certainly not trying to push Kool-Aid, which sometimes people accuse. I think it was the best spring since Matt got there. The first one was really good because they had to get so much done, and so much of what they were trying to do is just make them feel good.
I'm glad you said that.
The 2 seasons before that, it was just a nightmare in 1,000 ways. Yeah. Why are you glad?
I'm glad you said that, because later on I'm going to ask you a question about something me and Brandon were talking about on the field on Saturday. I got a little backlash on Twitter for tweeting out because of some of the negative vibes around the football program, right? You probably know what it is, but I want to talk about it later.
I do now, because Dina said, "You see that tweet Jacob put out there?"
AJ, I like to stir the pot, man, and I do believe it, but I like to stir the pot a little bit from time to time. It keeps me on my toes, Yeah,
it keeps me on my toes too, because everything you put out there is associated with us, and I'm somewhat responsible for it. But I do think it was a fantastic spring, and I'm going to go a little bit further than just spring. I'm going to go back to December when they started making changes. I think that they did a good job in maybe encouraging movement out of the program, and then what they brought into the program. I think that they got a positive return on the swap with the portal. Then I also think by getting in Chip Lindsey, especially because things, it was time for Phil to go. He needed to go. Time. I think Mac was ready for him to go. Phil did an incredible job at Carolina, got the offense to an exceptionally high level. I think he's a really good offensive coordinator, but maybe the one thing that his history suggests that his teams aren't great at are things that Chip Lindsey does well, and his background in more power running. I think that was a plus. I think Randy Clements is a plus at offensive line. They have not done a good job developing offensive linemen since Matt came back. I think Stacy coached his unit pretty well. I think last year under Bicknell was a disaster. Everything looked good up front with their approach, but it never happened. It never materialized. Clements has a background. Remember all those yards that Baylor ran against North Carolina in the bowl game back in 2015? Randy Clements was the offensive line coach. So I think they made positive additions there, positive swap there. And then bringing in Clyde Christensen, how on earth can you go wrong with that? You can't. And the guy was coaching Tom Brady 6 months ago, and then bringing in Ted Monachino from the Falcons. That was a huge plus. Freddie Kitchens is tight end coach. He was head coach of Cleveland Browns in 2019. So when you use the term brass the brass, they've got a great brass, meaning all the decision makers, all the minds in that room. The elevated degree of football know and football talk and football science in that room now, when you've got, as opposed to 2 years ago, you got Gene Chizik and Charlton Warren, Jason Jones, and you got Ted Monachino in there. On offense, you got Clyde Christensen, and you got Freddie Kitchens and Randy Clements and Chip Lindsey, Mac Brown. They have a much higher level of brass than they had before. And I think we've seen that in the plan. When you think about the words that were coming out of spring practice this year, I've never heard coaches use the word violent or in different forms. And I've heard that a lot. Violence. Mac even said last Saturday, violence, the violence of the defensive front. In talking to Gene Chizik about specific guys, Tamari Fox is violent. Amari Gaynor is violent. Travis Shaw can be violent. They want more violence from those guys. And then short area quickness, which was clearly an issue before, because you've got to get off the snap. Winning this snap, the battle at the line of scrimmage, you've got an edge, an advantage if you get off the snap quicker. And they've improved their short area quickness up front as individuals and across the board. And the other thing is we're hearing more about gap discipline. So don't peek your eyes at the next guy. Trust the next guy. Own your gap. Be quick off the ball, establish ownership of the gap, and maintain ownership of that gap by being disciplined. Do that across the board. Everything defensively could change. Those are the things that we heard a lot about that we hadn't heard. I had never heard violence used before. Mm-hmm. So I think that they feel very comfortable with where the scheme is, that now just be violent. Mm-hmm. You know what you're supposed to do. Stay within it, do it, and be violent. So those are all really good things. Of course, they have to show it on the field. The defense was bad last year. It needs to maybe not be great, but if they're in the 50 to 60 range, I think that might be enough to win a ton of games.
They'd be fine. Yeah.
And they have to be quicker off the ball to get there. They have to have more gap discipline to get there, and they have to be more violent to get there. So I think that those are positives. Offensively, very, very quickly from spring practice, they've got some question marks on offense. And I think these are question marks that are going to carry into fall. And I do think the defense knows itself better than the offense knows itself right now. I'll say that. Now they've got Drake.
I'm about to say that's good news to have a guy like that back there calling the shots. Yeah.
They got an offensive line coach who knows what he's doing. They're really good. Freddie Kitchens coach quarterbacks too. Mm-hmm. So they've got a lot of brain trust in there with the quarterbacks. I think they're really good at receiver. We'll see where they are at running back. They've got some guys back there, but it's time for a couple of them to just
a lot of talent in that room, but someone has to step up. Yeah.
There was separation this spring, but part of it was because other guys were banged up.
Yeah, injuries,
if everybody stays and they go into fall camp with everybody that's there now and they're all healthy, a couple guys must separate. They didn't have it up before. Max said we used too many guys, in part because nobody separated and there were injuries.
Yeah.
They need separation. They need two dudes to step forward and say, we're the guys. And it doesn't matter what their high school ranking was. None of that stuff matters.
Yeah, AJ, I definitely agree with kind of everything you said there. I think offense, you've got some probably a little bit more question marks over there, just with certain position groups than maybe you do on the defensive. I think you still have question marks, depth-wise at linebacker. Who's going to step? Is the D-line really going to be improved? I know we noticed they look quicker and faster, a little more twitchy off the block in the spring game and the other practice we got to see them. But does that translate into the actual real life games and, the real regular season? We'll have to see. But I do think there are reasons to be excited because there's a lot of negative vibes from fans around the program because of how last year ended. And guys, I get it. Trust me, I completely get it. Carolina fans are tired of being let down when it comes to football. I 100% get it. But I think there also should be some optimism and some excitement for this team because I think there's a lot of things to be excited about, not only from the roster to the personnel, to the coaches, to the analysts. I personally just think this could shape up to be a really solid year for North Carolina. I'm not saying they're going to win the national championship. It's ridiculous to say. But I do think Carolina can have a really nice season coming up, which we'll hit on a little bit later because I still want to talk about something later on.
I agree. And sort of hitting off your tweet a little bit there, because you just kind of went in the direction of your tweet, I believe. I do. I think there's a lot of positives. I still think that they need to fill some spots through the portal, which we're going to discuss here in a minute.
Yeah.
But I think there are reasons to believe that the program is headed in the right direction. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And that they continue to learn from mistakes. And that's the thing I'm going to give Mac the most credit for. And we're going to do a state of the program pod at another time, but I'm going to throw this in there. I am so impressed with 71-year-old Hall of Fame coach Mac Brown, a legend, his willingness to learn about what he doesn't want and then to make changes accordingly. People say, oh, Mac he makes changes.
Yeah.
There's some, I'm not going to go into the specifics. We've done it many times before, but Dre Bly will tell you he makes changes. There are people that will tell you he makes changes, and he does it in a way that he's just so good at what he does in that sense, right? But he has learned coming back. He tried a lot of the new wave stuff, and he scaled back in some areas, and he's learned what he wants, and he's learned what works, and he's adapted. He's fully adapted to the portal. He's fully adapted to NIL. I think that they would be a little bit more successful in the trail if the collective was better. Yeah. The collective is not great for UNC football. Basketball, they can get anybody, and the money's going to be there if it has to be there, however the money gets there, right? But it's not the case for football. Exactly. They have to be a little bit more selective. They can't recruit kids with the hands out. And I think Mac continues to adapt. And to me, that's one of the most impressive things about him. And the program is in better shape than it was before. You got an Orange Bowl and you got a 9-win season. You had one season of more than 8 wins since 1997 until last year. And first major bowl game in 71 years when they went a couple of years ago. So he continues to learn, continues to get better. And I really like the direction a lot of things are going. I like some of the tweaks they've made on offense. I like that the defense is going to be a little bit more aggressive. Everyone kicked the snot out of Gene Chizik last year. Give it time. I mean, how many people that were kicking his rear on social media last year, when they stepped into a new job and a new business, were kicking ass right away.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
No matter how long they've been doing it. Just because someone did it in another school doesn't mean not all situations are the same. They're all unique. So now, if they stink this year, then I think the criticism will be absolutely justified. Yeah. But let's 100%. Wait. Let's let it play out. Let's see what happens. Because I think positive things are happening in this program. Maybe it's not going at breakneck speed like a lot of people. It's not Usain Bolt type of speed. But so what? Programs that rise up overnight fall quickly. Yeah. The best way to build it is slowly. You saw what Mac did the first time at Carolina. You saw the way he built Texas. It's a layering process, and we're watching that now. So I said I wasn't going to go into state of the program thing, but I just did a healthy snapshot of the state of the program.
Kind of a snippet of what we'll talk about in another podcast. Again, Rome wasn't built in a day. I think Mac's done a nice job. I get the criticism. Trust me, I do. I really do. I think some Carolina fans think I don't, but I get it. And I completely understand the frustrations.
Trust me, he knows. He hears it. And I think he recognizes some of it's true as well. Yeah. People were kicking his butt for saying, boy, I'm really impressed with 9 wins. We made progress. Yeah, but you lost your last 4. The whole point was they won 9 games. Hadn't done it before but once since he had left previously.
Won the Coastal Division.
One of the messages right now that they hear about every day is 9 ain't enough. Okay, we took that step. Now let's take another step forward. Yeah. Let's go 10. Let's go 11. Let's go 12. And if Drake's going to contend for a Heisman Trophy, they probably have to go 11.
No doubt about it. Yeah. And
they have to go 11-1. If the loss is at Clemson and it's competitive and they go 11-1, Drake's got a shot. So they know these things. They're not ignorant to it at all. They recognize these things completely. Trust me, Mac totally knows what people are saying. And he totally understands what the next step needs to be. So people need to sit back and allow it to play itself out. And there's a pretty good chance it will play out to ultimately their satisfaction.
I think so as well. Let's hit on the portal real quick. Few positions that Carolina might consider bringing some guys in. Nobody, as of the recording of this podcast, has left yet. We're recording this on the Wednesday after the spring game. So only a few days after that, nobody entered the portal as of yet. Would expect something to happen. When you're looking at positions, O-line, quarterback, potentially running back, maybe. I do think there's a lot of talent in that room, but maybe if the right guy kind of pops up in the portal, over the next few days or weeks. Maybe you consider bringing somebody in. And then I think that backup linebacker position potentially as well. I do think they have some nice parts behind there in Cheeks and Deuce Caldwell, but again, improving guys. If you could bring in maybe a guy that's got a little bit more experience that would be happy kind of playing a little reserve role for a year or so at Carolina, I think Carolina would probably jump at that as well if he's the right fit. So talk to me a little bit about some potential portal moves the Tar Heels could make.
I think that there are two position groups which would surprise me if they didn't bring somebody in. Offensive line, they've got 6 right now. They won 8, and there is a sizable gap between the 6th and the next guy. You know, Caden Baker, if he didn't retire, I think maybe he would have been on track to be one of those guys because he's played some. Heck, they thrust him into center duties against Duke a couple years ago, teaching him that position during the week. His dad was a center in college. Something that Mac always liked to point out about Caden Baker. His dad played for Bobby Bowden at Florida State. They're still working on some of the progress with some of these other guys like Eli Sutton, Zach Rice, Malik McGowan, Diego Pounds. When healthy, Trevion Green, who's looked really good when healthy, maybe he would have been able to get himself into that rotation, that tier, that upper tier. But he's been banged up some, so you got to play in order to be there. Right now it's 6, and only one of those guys was recruited as a high school player by Mac Brown and his program. That's Jonathan Adorno. So they have not done a good job of developing high school players. 3 of the 6 are transfers: Gaynor from Miami, Rowland from Harvard, and Lampkin from Coastal Carolina. Mm-hmm. 2 of them were Larry Fedora recruits, and Barnes and Monolith, and Adorno is the Mac Brown recruit. So they have a lot of work to do. I think if Randy Clements is a teacher, we're going to see that play out, and maybe we'll see someone climb into that group at some point. I also think that there's a very high standard for that group as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's another thing. So it's not like you're going to be in the 8-man rotation because we've decided there's going to be an 8-man rotation come hell or high water, and we got to have 8 guys in there. I don't believe that's the case. I think that there's a line, and above that line are the people who can be in a rotation. They prefer to have 8. If it's 10, fantastic. If it's 6, they got to roll with 6. Mm-hmm. And right now it's 6. So you have to move up. They're not going to move that far down to include 2 more. I like that approach, and I think that that's a good approach to go into the offseason with, because these guys are going to have to work hard. Their footwork's got to get better. The toughness of some of them has to get better. Some of them aren't glass chewers yet, and they got to become glass chewers. And that's how they'll get into that position come fall. But I do think that they're probably going to go out and find somebody. There's some pretty good dudes in the portal, offensive line. And so I think they would have a shot at getting one of those guys. Probably have a lot to sell. They have a rotation spot to sell, and a rotation spot blocking for a potential Heisman winner. That's pretty good. Mm-hmm. So I think they have a lot to sell there. I think Clements has a good track record that he could attract some kids as well. The other is quarterback. And I say this because Mac brought it up the other day. We're constantly evaluating quarterbacks. He's expressed the need to not just have Drake's backup for this year, someone they're comfortable with, but they got to get ready for 2024 because Drake's not going to be around. And they had Drake waiting in the wings and serving as an apprentice under Sam, and it worked. They would love to bring in somebody that they think could be the starter in 24 to serve as an apprentice under Sam in 23. And if something happens to Sam, this guy can go into the game. Now, people are probably thinking, well, they have Connor Harrell and Tad Hudson and even Jefferson Boaz. Hudson just got there. He's got a long way to go. That doesn't mean he won't get there, but he's got a long way to go. It's going to take time for him, right? Harrell has been inconsistent. He's been really good at times, and he's been really off at times and struggled. And he's only 6 feet tall. I'm not sure that that's a Chip Lindsey type quarterback. Phil Longo was okay with the 6'1" guys. Jacoby Criswell is one of them. He's now at Arkansas. So I think getting somebody who they think could not only end up being QB2 this year, but perhaps have a chance of being QB1 in 24, if they could find the right guy, and there might be some of those guys in the portal here soon. I know Dina's already planted a few seeds in my ear. I'm not going to say here publicly until those kids are in the portal, but I think they would like to do that. And they're not going to bring in someone just for the sake of bringing in someone. I think offensive line, they might do that. But quarterback, you got to be so careful. Plus, you don't want to run Connor out just yet. You still want to give him time and give him someone to compete with. So that would not surprise me. As far as running back goes, that might be more reactionary and someone leaves. And also, they just need guys to be healthy. Yeah. I think if you wait it out till August and you realize in August, Pettaway's just not there. Hood just can't stay healthy. And, British's knee, it's too much to risk. And you're going to move DJ Jones back to running back. They have numbers there, but I don't think that they're in as predictably good a shape as they want to be. They can't pencil in anything other than, so far we know what we got in Elijah Green and Omarion Hampton, who's got considerable upside. Otherwise, I think it's a giant question mark back there. And then middle linebacker, you kind of said it yourself. I think Cheeks, if he was healthy, they'd be okay with that. I think Caldwell's made tremendous progress. So maybe they stand pat there, because if something does happen, they can always move Amari Gaynor over there because he played there at Florida State. So I doubt they bring anybody there, but maybe they do. I think they do that before. I don't think they're going to bring in any defensive backs. I don't think they're going to bring in any defensive linemen, no wide receivers, no tight ends. We kind of hit the 4 position groups. And I think offensive line and quarterback are probably the first 2 spots to look at.
Agreed, AJ. Real quickly, I'm going to ask you the question I proposed to you earlier, not proposed to you earlier, but hinted at earlier. Because I'm gonna take guys through what went into me putting it out there on Twitter. So me and Brandon were sitting on the field on Saturday doing some video photo work, and Brandon turned to me and said, "I think this might be the best overall Carolina roster that maybe just from top to bottom that Max had since he came back." And first I was like, yeah, maybe not. And I started thinking about it and kind of thinking about who they have on offense, who they have on defense, some of the depth they have, some of the experience they have at different positions. I said, you know what? I think I can agree with that. I think this might be the best roster that Mac Brown, top to bottom on paper, not saying it's going to translate and win the national title next year, Carolina fans, but top to bottom, I do think that this may be the best overall roster that he has. And I want to ask you that question because let me break it down what I mean by that. Drake May, best quarterback Carolina's ever had. Sam Howell was great, but I think we can both agree that Drake's high-end potential translating to the NFL, he is the best quarterback that Carolina's had. And I think you even saw that in glimpses last year. He's fantastic for the most part.
No argument there.
I don't think you can argue with me on that. O-line, I think there's a lot of experience down there. I think that's the biggest thing that jumps out. William Barnes has been around the program for a while. Even a guy like Ed Montilus, we're not talking about a lot, been around the program for a while. Spencer Rowland, really high upside, played a lot of college football in his day. You brought in a guy like Willie Lampkin. You've got some, still some depth issues they've got to kind of figure out. And you've also got a center in Corey Gaynor that's played a lot of college football at the ACC level in particular. So I think O-line, you got a lot of experience down there, got some talent, and you got some depth issues. But I do think, heck, you've got a 5-star in Zach Rice waiting in the rings who's continuing to develop. That's somebody you'd love to, most college programs would love to have potentially as a backup lineman. So
if he hit the portal tomorrow, everyone would be after him.
Yeah, exactly. Wide receiver core. I think it's the deepest wide receiver core Carolina's had in terms of just overall talent since Mac Brown's come back. Now, maybe the high end isn't as much, De'Ami Brown, Daz Newsome, guys like that who've gone on to the NFL and done some nice things. But I think there is potential at the high end with a guy like Tez Walker, with a guy like Nate McCullum, with a guy like Kobe Paysor, JJ Jones. I think they have a group right there, Andre Green, that's overall just deep and a lot of talent in there. And there's also a healthy mix of guys that have played a lot of college football as well. So wide receiver core looks pretty good. Tight end room, one of the best tight end rooms, if not the best tight end room in the country depth wise. I don't have to say anything more about that. I think they have just a ton of depth there. And then on defense, it's a defense that got better last year. I know it's a defense that struggled a lot last year. It's a defense that's a unit that struggled since Mac Brown's come back. I get that. But I do think when you look at the overall guys that they have, not a lot of depth at linebacker, but 2 really good linebackers in Power Echols and Cedric Gray. Don't anybody's going to argue with that. D-line, a D-line that struggled and has to produce and be better this year. But when you look at who they're returning, you look at some of the high-end guys like Travis Shaw down there, Miles Murphy, a lot of depth, a lot of talent, and it's just a room that needs to grow a little bit and produce more on the field. I'm not arguing that. Cornerback room, some question marks there, but a lot of options there. Some younger guys, some guys that have played a little bit more. Elijah Huzzy coming in, high, a lot of expectations for him. And then that safety room, AJ. Good Lord, it's Will Hardy, Jaquarius Conley, Gio Biggers. Who am I missing? I know I'm missing guys right now.
Don Chapman. Derek Allen from Georgia Tech. It's just an extremely deep room. Again, I know it's a defense that has a lot to prove. But when I look at the overall roster on paper, I think there's a lot of talent and a lot of options and a lot of experience on that side of the ball. So I know it's a big summary and a kind of a long-winded way to ask you, but that's okay.
Do you see where me and Brandon are coming from? And do you agree with it? I do.
And I think it needs it. And I think you need a tagline on here as well. And that would be, you're basing this on who they are as college players, not what their high school
on paper, college
because
players,
they've lost a lot of 4-star guys.
Yeah.
Like the roster 2 years ago, just from pure star ranking standpoint, was really, really high. Mm-hmm. It's not as high now because they lost a lot of those 4 stars. And by the way, I think Tez Walker could be as good or better than any of those guys that you mentioned.
I think so as well. I think he could be.
I also believe that they could have 5 wide receivers that catch 40 or more passes each.
It's deep, man.
And I see Walker in the 80 range. I see McCollum in the 60 to 70 range, at least. So I agree with you there. I think tight end is outstanding.
It's deep, man.
Drake is the best they've ever had at that position. And I'll tell you what, if they can stay healthy at running back, if they've got a super smart, shifty guy like Green, and they've got the pretty amazing potential of a Marion Hampton, I think they could be in really good shape there.
There's a lot of talent in that room. It's just
there's a lot of question marks there. Yeah. Defensively, though, I agree with you about defensive line. I'll give you a couple positives. They didn't have Tamari Fox last year. Mm-hmm. They have him now. I think he's Ray Vahasek, but maybe better in some ways. Maybe better for what this defense wants. I think he's a guy that can apply pressure to the quarterback a little bit more than Vahasek did.
Yeah, I agree.
Vahasek was good at that. Mm-hmm. They've got a healthy Miles Murphy. He didn't even practice for a while last year. I think that's a plus. Travis Shaw's trimmed down. He's taking it seriously now. Mm-hmm. A lot of maturing has gone on there. Kedrick Beanley-Jones is healthy again. And Mac has said, look, it's time for him to produce. Got to play. So I think they're pretty solid there. I think people are going to love what Bo Atkinson eventually turns into.
Yeah.
We haven't even
Kevin
mentioned
Hester's down there as well.
And I think, Kevin Hester's improved more than anybody on the team the last couple of years. And by the way, I think Des Evans was banged up late in camp. I don't have any confirmation on that, but I sort of do a little bit. But yeah, he was kind of banged up. So he's Des. I think he's on a different path than I think a pace rather than I think people expected and wanted, but allow him that process. It'll happen the way it's supposed to happen for him, if it's supposed to happen. The cornerbacks, I think they're in good shape. Armani Chapman started 25 games at Virginia Tech. It's hard to imagine he won't start or play a lot. I think Huzzy's going to be a stud. The safeties, you mentioned a lot of names, but I can go the other way and say, well, Hardy's still inexperienced, true sophomore. Biggers was okay. I mean, that defense wasn't very good last year, and we saw the back of his jersey. These guys ran the inside a few times. And remember, I'm taking the devil's advocate side here. Conley, mind and knee are not in sync yet. So until that happens, he's not going to be the guy that he was before the injury. Chapman has been all over the place and hasn't really been able to get locked in any one spot. He's played some stars. He can play a little bit of corner, but he is an experienced guy back there. And, Derek Allen didn't play a ton every year at Georgia Tech. I don't think Derek Allen's an all-ACC safety. I think what he brings is a little bit more veteran presence, and I think he's going to be a good special teams player. So I think there's a lot to be sorted out at safety. I really do. And that might be a situation where a position group where they play 4 guys. Yeah. They play him as specialists. I believe ultimately starting lineup is going to be Biggers and Hardy. I think Hardy's going to be really good someday. Mm-hmm. Maybe Conley moves to star because they're in good shape with DeAndre Boykins.
Yeah, he's a great player.
But
their options,
you want to get a guy like
good.
If Conley can return to the mental comfort that he had with his knee before the injury, then suddenly you're talking about a guy who does the violent thing. We were talking about violence earlier, and someone that could really help them out. And also play a bunch of different spots because he's played corner. It was nickel before it's star now, and he's played safety. So there's a lot of valuable pieces back there, but I don't know how many guys pop yet in the secondary. We have to see them pop before they do. I can already envision Tez Walker popping because I've already seen him do it.
Yeah.
47-yard touchdown pass at Washington last year, 50 yards receiving, whatever it was, against Georgia. He scored the first offensive touchdown that Georgia gave up last year in the first half. And it made the score 12-10 in a game they actually pushed Georgia. So
I don't think it's an outlandish statement to say, is what I'm saying. I think a lot of Carolina fans see it as where, you say that, so you're automatically saying they're going to win 12 games, and that's not.
I don't think I would have tweeted it.
Yeah.
But I also stay away from stuff like that, especially because all my tweets are now on the THI handle. I have my own ACC one that I haven't touched in 9 years, but almost 9 years. I went over there about 3 months ago, and I still had like 4,700 followers on there.
That's pretty solid, man.
So I was around 6,000 when I stopped using it. I still have it. I just haven't used it. Maybe if I leave this job and go back in into something else, maybe I'll do that or start back on it again. But I think you got to wait and see. I think that this team has a chance to maybe be the most well-rounded.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I meant by it. Like, because I think paper, the defense, maybe the best overall roster.
The defense has got to be better.
Yeah,
they got to be better, right? I mean, there's not a whole lot more distance to fall for that group. I know they played better late.
Yeah, they did improve a little bit. Yeah,
but they weren't great.
No, they have to improve drastically. And you would think that would happen with new analysts coming in, Gene Chizik year 2, some personnel they brought in. You would think the defense would improve.
You would think so.
Doesn't mean they will.
But I'm a seeing is believing kind of guy.
Yeah, especially when it comes to.
And we would have thought the basketball team would have steamrolled, and they didn't.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point.
This is all just opinion based on years of experience doing this. So I wouldn't pencil them in for an ACC championship just yet.
No, I think
but I do think they have a chance to win a lot of games. And with a couple of things improving that are unforeseen right now, maybe they become great at safety.
Yeah.
Huzzy and Chapman are lockdown guys that allow them to play a lot more press coverage, which they want to do. And maybe they get pressure up front. All those, the violence, the short area quickness, the violence, and the gap discipline are all there. Then I think they have a chance to be pretty good.
Yeah, I think so as well. And if they do come out with a good record this year, their schedule is tough. There are some tough games, so they would have earned those wins. Not like they're playing, just a bunch of mid majors.
I think it's tougher than it was a year ago. Yeah,
I think it is too. I think if you give this year's team last year's schedule, they'd probably be feeling maybe a little bit better, because I do think it was a little more opportunities last year. But again, some really tough games this year. But I do think it's a team that overall, when I look at the roster, just top to bottom, strictly college, I'm not talking about NFL, how it translates to the NFL. I do think this may be the most well-rounded roster that he's at. I think that's not an outlandish thing to say. And let me say, there were a lot of Carolina fans that did agree with me on Twitter. There's a lot of fans that didn't disagree. That's completely fine. Sometimes I like to put these things out there and stir the pot a little bit.
And you usually hear from the disagreeers on Twitter more than the agreeers.
Exactly. And I like to put
there's some guys that are wired to just.
Well, it's social media for you, AJ. I could tweet the sky's blue and someone would be like, actually, it's like a turquoise blue. It's not actually blue. No, it's like a slight bluish green. No, you know what I mean? That's just Twitter for you. I mean, that's what kind of can make it fun at times if you want to stir the pot a little bit. But again,
or annoying.
Yeah, or very annoying as well.
We'll put David's tweet out there, or David's intel on the board, and you just Google the name, you'll get the same information somewhere else. That's I chuckle when I see stuff like that.
Not true. You gotta love it, man. That's social. You might have just summed up social media.
You go to 7-Eleven, you're going to get some kind of burger in there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Or I'm showing my Virginia side, or wherever that has those little cold burgers that you heat up in a microwave. Or you can go to Red Robin.
Yeah, get a burger fresh made out of the kitchen. Yeah, 100%. No,
if you're standing in front of Red Robin, all you got to do is walk in and pay for Red Robin burgers. I'm going to go to what's that? The K's Mart, or
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Fiddlesticks, something like that, and get one of those jobs that have been in there for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
ain't the same thing, bro.
So. Yeah. No, I know what you mean.
We got off on another tangent. We
often do that.
For the course.
That's how we like to wrap these up. And real quickly, we're going to head out here in a second, but want to give a shout out to our sponsor, as promised, Rogue Shop. Check them out, rogueshop.com. Specialize in top shelf family guard hemp products, CBD, Delta 8, Delta 9, tinctures, oils, gummies, candies, flour, cream, whatever you like. they've got it, and it's all really high quality stuff. Make
I'm
sure you
gonna
use
do
that
this
promo
again.
code. Yeah,
My
man.
shoulders.
That
I'm
cream's
not in
real deal.
pain.
Cream's the real deal, man. I've got 3 family members that use it, I think. Yeah. And have been using it not just like recently. They tried it out. I've been using it for like two years now. So
Well,
they
Carly's
absolutely
been
love the
using
stuff.
it.
Yeah, man.
She used it on her hand, right?
Yeah, uses it on her hands 100%. She had a couple hand surgeries. She has some constant pain in her hands from time to time, and she uses the cream, and it's helped her out a lot. So again, it's really good stuff. And make sure you use that promo code Tar Heels 10 to save. Link is in the description below. Go ahead and get an order and buy their awesome products. Again, we've been blessed to try out some different things. They've sent us some care packages before, and again, I wouldn't be on here advocating them for them as much if their products sucked. That's not the type of person I am. It's really high quality stuff, and I can't speak highly enough of it, down from the packaging to the actual products and what you're taking and consuming. So again, use that promo code Tar Heels 10. Links in the description below. Check them out at rogueshop.com. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Another episode of the UNC football show. Stay tuned. Obviously, doing a State of the Program podcast soonish as well, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of other things to talk about. And if Carolina does land any transfers, or anybody does leave and transfer from North Carolina, you'll find it first on TarHeelIllustrated.com. $8.33 a month. If you want to sign up, you can be a Carolina insider too. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. We're going to be uploading a lot of podcasts this offseason. See you all in the next one. Thanks.